What up, y'all? We're gonna I started watching this video and I stopped watching it pretty quickly because I wanted to watch it with Allie because it's really, really hilarious video. Here we go.
But they want to cut the population down, and if you put them on a plant-based diet, that atrophies their glands and their testes and ovaries, and it makes it almost impossible to conceive. Well, it's just a great way to depopulate them, and to them, it's a very humane way of doing it.
So there's no vegan couple. There's no two.
I don't
male,
have kids.
female. If that's a fact, there should be no vegan couples who have kids, right? Maybe they're lying. Maybe they're sneaking the burgers on the side. These pregnant ladies, vegan ladies.
Hi, Varis. How are you today?
Doing well. How are you, Joey?
I'm really, really good. I'm so excited for this. You are probably the most knowledgeable person on these.
For one, this kid's 19. He's been on the carnivore diet for 6 months. Joey. And yet somehow he's been propelled to an influencer on YouTube. Somehow in a very short amount of time, he's gotten like 25,000 followers and gets like 30 to 40,000 views on every video he makes. Yeah, just a little
topics that I've ever spoken with. You know so much about anthropology. You've written multiple books on humans and basically how we've suffered tremendously from plant-based diets, and how it's very, very clear that we do well on animal-based diets, and history has shown that. And I'm so excited to get into this with you, talk about topics like who benefits from veganism, what veganism is, what it does, what meat-based diets do in contrast to that. So thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me today.
Let's hear it.
Of course, my pleasure.
So let's get into what happened. What happened to us? Why are we so sick today? What's happened in the past 100 years, say?
Okay, so first we have to establish a foundation here, and then we'll build on top of that. So we look at statistics on almost all diseases over the past 100 years. Autoimmune disorders prior to the 1920s are virtually unknown, and they've risen exponentially since then. Heart disease was virtually unknown. Of course, it was there, but it was extremely rare. Cardiovascular disease prior to the 1920s, and it is now perhaps the #1 killer in the United States today. Cancers, they've just skyrocketed. Infertility amongst men and women.
They just skyrocketed?
You have fertility clinics on almost every corner in developed cities in the West.
Fertility clinics on almost every corner in every city in the US?
Almost every male is in need of some type of hormone replacement therapy.
What, Planned Parenthood?
So you have...
Did you see what he said?
Go back.
Every male is in need of some type of hormone replacement therapy.
Every
male?
You
have hormone levels dropping, you have sperm counts dropping. The #1 killer of babies today is brain cancer. So even babies are not immune to this. And we have to ask what happened over the past 100 years with all these diseases and these statistics rising so quickly and exponentially. Now, of course, we can say that the environmental pollutants played a role, the EMFs play a role, the pollution plays a role, right? Stressful lifestyles play a role,
right?
And they all have their part. But my belief is that the core of all this is the dramatic alteration of the natural human diet, which has occurred over the past 100 years. And if we study that, we find that the alteration and transition from what was formerly a meat-based diet in the West and in much of the world, and that transition from a meat-based diet to a predominantly plant-based diet parallels and correlates perfectly with the skyrocketing disease statistics.
Hold up. So did he just claim that the world is on a predominantly plant-based diet now?
He said we've been changed. We've been switched to a predominantly plant-based diet.
That's objectively not true.
Yes.
I mean, I don't even know what else to say other than that. That is just not true.
And that transition from a meat-based diet to a predominantly plant-based diet parallels and correlates perfectly with the skyrocketing disease statistics.
Parallels and correlates to what? His opinion? Because he just said this was all his opinion.
Yeah, on his opinion of how many people are having are doing a plant-based
Switching to-
diet.
yeah.
But the other thing is, what period of history is he exactly talking about?
Said
I'm not
last 100 years.
he said
earlier.
100
Yeah.
years. Okay.
Which I had mentioned just earlier, the autoimmune disorders, the cancers, the infertility, and all that. And of course, there's science and all this to back it up. But let's establish that foundation, and then we can work forward from about 1920 when all of this really
What
started.
foundation?
The vegan agenda, as I like to refer to it as.
1940s vegan agenda.
It said
I've seen the same things as you, where it's
1920.
just
Let's establish that foundation, and then we can work forward from about 1920 when all of this really started. The vegan
1920.
agenda, as I like to refer to it as.
So
1920s.
yeah, I've seen the same things as you, where it's just, especially with
2022.
vegetable oils, is what I've really seen. Like the correlation between vegetable oils and sickness is so clear. Much unlike the inverse correlation between saturated fat consumption and sickness, where less saturated fat, more sickness, and yet people say it's meat that's the problem. So
that right there, let's just review that. So he's saying that he's basically saying that a vegan diet has to include seed oils, and therefore meat and animal fat is better than seed oils because of that doesn't mean that animal fat is healthy. If one thing, do you know what I'm saying?
He's assuming the diet.
And he's assuming the diet. Yeah, I mean, us personally, we avoid seed oils as much as possible. I know I do, but that's but we're vegan, so how does that? It's just that's fallacious.
He's
claims.
assuming what we eat and assuming what all vegans eat.
Yeah, and saying if one is better than the other, then one must be good, which can be they can both be bad.
Wishy-washy,
One can be
slippery
just
slope.
less bad than the other.
why is this happening, right? Why is it that we go on plant-based diets, our diets become less animal-based, more plant-based, and we get
Who's we?
sicker? Is it because
Just
maybe
humans in
the natural
general.
human diet is one that consists of meat?
That's perhaps exactly why.
Is that a good guess?
Where would you come up with that idea? That we've moved to a vegan diet and now we're sicker? You'll never get where these guys get these ideas
Yeah,
from.
where are the actual numbers coming
stats.
from though?
They keep saying numbers when you look at the numbers.
Because I mean, overall caloric intake has increased and steadily increased in the past 100 years, and so it's I think it's a little bit more nuanced than they're making it appear.
And meat eating has gone up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, the natural human. I would say that the natural human diet is that. This is the best way to frame it. Every human culture knew that meat is the first food. After
Okay,
Says who?
boom. Every culture that's a what? Yeah, how?
Fallacy.
Ay. All right, let's keep going.
that you eat
And
what
it's
else
and
comes
on top of it just being factually incorrect, it's a fallacy and it's appealing to the crowd, which is also a different type of fallacy. Like, you can't, just because a bunch of people think it's a certain way doesn't mean that it's necessarily that way.
Yeah, or appeal to tradition. Just because a culture has been doing something for a long time doesn't mean it's better. I mean, I'm assuming he's going to give some scientific studies or numbers or something to back this up. But right now, these statements are very general and blanketing and not true.
Yeah.
Sorry. Let's keep going.
is that. This is the best way to frame it. Every human culture knew that meat is the first food. After that, you eat what else comes next, what else is available in your local environment, or what you can hunt and gather. But meat is.
I wonder what scientific evidence he has that proves that.
And he's saying that there's no cultures that relied on, let's say, whatever local fruit or something that was growing first. Why would they not? Why would humans, especially you know, however period of how long ago that have, let's say, less technology than we have now, why would they spend most of their time trying to get calories from meat, which takes a lot, you know, to catch an animal, it's a lot
Animals
more work.
run away from you.
Yeah, picking fruit from a tree.
Fruit is planted.
Yeah, I'm sure it depends on the environment, right? And the climate, whatever, the foliage. But to say that all cultures said meat was the first food, that's also wrong.
Always the number one food. It's the first food. So that's the way I view it. And what's happened in this transition.
Okay, so you view it that way, or did everyone view it that way?
Is that meat has become the last food. You get what I'm saying? At best, most
As it should be. Meat is reserved for emergency purposes.
people, they maybe have a chicken nugget, you know, a cheeseburger, but who's really having lamb chops grilled over a
Go to
flame fire
Texas.
like a caveman? Who's doing
Where's
that?
this guy
Right?
live?
Majority of the population is not doing that at all. They're not. And when you go to the grocery store
In Texas, where there's literally where he was saying that there was fertility clinics on every corner. In Texas, there's a barbecue place on every corner. And
Yeah, it's true.
the barbecue
seen it.
places are attached to giant farms where they slaughter all these animals and feed them to everyone. I'm really confused why this guy seems to think that he's the minority being a meat eater.
Yeah.
Because that's what he's making it seem like.
Yeah, totally.
And the only way I could think he would think that is if he's surrounded by people who think that or are repeating those statements over and over again, completely ignoring reality. Groupthink.
right? You have maybe like 20 aisles and you have a large produce section. And in the far corner, you have a small dairy section with most of the fat removed. It's all skim milk and a very small meat section. So it's kind of asinine to believe that that small little meat section.
Small meat section? No. There's a whole
Like,
the whole wall.
I
I'm
would
just thinking
say at
more-
least 60 to 80% of the food. No, maybe 60% of the food has meat in its store, probably. Go down the
or at least
freezer
animal.
section. Yeah.
But yeah,
Or
there's
90% if it's animal.
I'm just thinking, okay, our local Ralphs. There's 2 Ralphs around here, and then what else?
All right,
We've got
we're gonna go
Sprouts,
and make a video, and we'll put it up.
film
We'll just go film what the
the
closest
aisles,
Ralph's is.
the meat section.
It's not how this
That's
guy is
crazy.
saying. Like, where does this guy live? Because I want to live there.
I
wanna go there.
Know, yeah.
Because this isn't.
Section in the corner, which only the bodybuilders and actually authentically health conscious people go to.
Oh, so he's saying there's only a little section where there's meat,
Bodybuilders are the only.
and those are where the bodybuilders and the health conscious people go.
Small meat section. So it's
Bodybuilders don't live past 50, it seems like. Bodybuilders are unnatural. If you're going to be saying natural and unnatural, bodybuilders are unnatural. They don't get that way by eating meat. They get that way by doing steroids
Yeah.
and
And eating enough.
and working out in
And
an
eating a lot.
insane pace.
Yeah. And let's be real here. Bodybuilders are not health conscious eaters. They're vanity conscious. They're not health conscious. Like, come on, that's
You know how
Wouldn't you
much
agree?
meat
Like-
they have to eat to keep up that weight? Like,
or just
that's not healthy.
volume. Yeah, you have to eat a lot to have muscles.
I
But
wonder
yeah, if
what
you're eating
these guys.
meat-based
I wonder
especially-
what their like measure of health is. Like what they
Yeah.
think is. I mean, obviously, he just said bodybuilders.
He thinks big muscles are
Yes.
big health.
big
Good health.
muscles mean you're healthy.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely not true. Look at how many professional athletes
Rich Piana,
die.
what the hell? Rich Piana
Rich
should have lived to
Piana.
200.
He should be 200 years. Yeah. Why isn't the world full of bodybuilders that have been living forever?
Yeah,
Like
centenarian bodybuilder.
they all like look at all the the wrestlers from back in the day. They're like they all died when I was in my 20s, and they were in their 30s doing that stuff. So
It's kind of
crazy.
asinine to believe that that small little meat section in the corner, which only the bodybuilders and actually authentically health conscious people go to, has been causing all of these diseases.
The shrinking, the shrink.
We're gonna go into a local supermarket to see if veganism and the plant-based diet is being shoved down everyone's throats. Then he just made up a story where there's a tiny meat section in a store when it's usually half the length of the back of the store.
They got beef, chicken,
Fish,
pork, the fish,
crabs,
all the
and
different
lobsters, all
ground
kinds
beef,
of stuff. Like,
grass-fed,
what is this guy
non-grass-fed,
talking about, people? And why is he somehow some sort of authority when he's speaking in such fallacy and speaking so generally and loosely?
I haven't heard him cite anything specifically, like he's talking about all these cultures throughout history, meat being the first food, blah, blah, blah.
Every single human culture
haven't heard
meat was...
Yeah, there's no specific example given. I mean, maybe we're only...
Nor is it scientifically accurate.
This is long. Okay, let's go.
No.
Or is it
we're not watching all of it.
The other 90% of the market, the 16 aisles that have predominantly plant-based material inside of it, right?
Hold up. Can we just go back? Can I just hear that again? Did you just say that the is predominantly plant-based, all the aisles?
Bodybuilders and actually authentically health-conscious people go to has been causing all of these diseases? Or is it not the other 90% of the market, the 16 aisles that have predominantly plant-based material inside of it, right? All the pastas, the cookies, the crackers, the gummies, the junk food, and
gummies?
So I think he's missing.
Gummies are made of gelatin.
Yeah, straight up. That's false. But he doesn't understand. No. He doesn't understand the definition of plant-based. He thinks anything that's made of...
not just meat.
Yeah. Like if there's plants in it, then it's plant-based. That's what he's saying. He's saying all these plant-based, these cookies. He's not using it to mean thing. He's not using it to mean
he's completely he doesn't even know the definition of
he's not using it properly.
No, he doesn't know the definition. He doesn't know it.
Because he's arguing that, from their perspective, anything, plants equal bad, right? Any amount of plants in your food is bad. So that's what he's saying, plant-based. Yeah, anything that's not 100% animal products is plant-based. So I just realized that's... Yeah.
Which consists of predominantly high fructose corn syrup, which is a plant-based product, cornstarch, genetically altered wheat, vegetable oils, and multiple preservatives and chemicals.
What do you think the cows you're eating are fed, bro?
He only hunts elk and buys grass
kills them with his teeth
from the farmer's market.
He goes and wrestles them in the forest and bites them, and then starts eating them from the ass first, which is what most animals will do.
And dude, okay.
So you got 16 aisles of packaged, processed, vegan, plant-based food.
Oh, okay. No. All right. So he
has no idea.
Okay.
This dude is so disconnected from what is going on.
So we're gonna go to the store.
That he doesn't understand that that's not vegan or plant-based.
No, as
he doesn't know the definitions.
Vegan. Yeah,
he's on a show. He's on a podcast where they only bash vegans, and he doesn't know the definition of vegan or plant-based.
He's just throwing crap out there. He's just saying stuff now. He's just saying stuff that's not true. He's saying the majority, because I thought I thought he was just saying, plant-based. He's just misusing the word, I guess so. But he straight up said vegan. Most of these vegan foods with high fructose corn syrup and this and that and preservatives, and they're all plant-based.
We're gonna take a picture of the vegan food section at the store.
Yeah, as two vegans that have been vegan for a long time, even we make mistakes sometimes. You have to read the labels. Most stuff has animal products in it, eggs or gelatin or dairy.
You just said gummies. Gummies are gelatin. Gelatin is bones.
That's
and hoofs.
Absolutely ridiculous. And all right, let's keep going.
Which is grown by the petrochemical industry. And that has become a large part of the diet over the past 60, 70 years. But yet the public has been indoctrinated into believing that saturated animal fat and protein is the culprit for all of these skyrocketing disease statistics. But when they ponder, if these people were to actually contemplate and ponder this, they're not actually eating real animal protein and saturated fat. You can't call a chicken nugget saturated fat and animal protein. You get what I mean?
Right.
It's totally different, two different worlds. So let's go back. Let's start from the beginning.
Why? So you mentioned that people in the past have prioritized meat, right? They've meat is the number one thing. Why is that something that we should give credence to? I mean, I'm totally with you, right? In that if ancient civilizations and just not even that far back, just even 100 years back, people are really prioritizing meat. Meat is the center of the plate. Why?
Says who? The Native
Where?
Americans in California? We're very outdoorsy. We go out a lot. We keep stumbling upon ancient Native American mortars, right? It's one of the few things we have left of the natives from California are these holes ground into the rocks where they ground nuts.
Yeah, nuts, seeds,
Seeds,
grains, all
and cook them into patties
We find
like
them
bread and
everywhere.
crackers. This is what they lived off of. If they were lucky, they might get meat, but they lived off of what was in the area growing on the ground that
Yeah.
you didn't have to chase after
right.
and kill and fight for its death. Like, these dudes are so out of touch. Well, this kid doesn't know he's 19, but this guy, holy
maybe
cow.
he's talking about the Inuit. Like what specific?
Inuits didn't
like,
live past 45.
Yeah, no, and even then, it's
It makes sense to me just intuitively, but for someone who's kind of struggling to grasp this, why is that something that we should care about?
Excellent question. So we see in the West that the average lifespan does not really reach beyond 60 or 70 years old. You have majority of people breaking down in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. I consider going on a medication breaking down. And actually, I'm more extreme. I consider
Okay, there we go.
adolescent acne.
There's one measure of health.
Mhm.
He says breaking down makes me going on any medication means breaking down.
The initial stages of physically breaking down, because that is what it is a symptom of. It's a symptom of the intestinal integrity breaking down. So if you've got people breaking down in their early teens and dying in their 60s and 70s, we should give credence to past cultures.
Do intestines break down from acids or neutrals and bases?
And their focus on animal foods, because they all typically lived into their 90s and 100s. I mean, you look at cultures all around the world, and they have majority of their senior citizens living to 90, 100, 110 years old. So we do have to learn from our past and learn what mistakes we have made and what the causes are for, the situation that we're in right now.
Who are these people living to that age? Where?
And by the way, the U.S. life expectancy as of 2010 was average 78 years old, just not 60.
Not 60.
A good example of this, for example, there was the Blue Zones book, and they tried to paint a picture that the centenarian cultures around the world were on plant-based diets. For example, one was the Okinawans, and the other were the Hunza, and I'm going to use those two as an example. They painted the Okinawans to be on a plant-based diet and the Hunza as well. But the fact of the matter is that...
Wait, so earlier he called plant-based 90% of the foods in the store, right?
Yeah.
So now he's saying that these people who are eating predominantly plant-based aren't eating plant-based.
Exactly. That's what I was saying with the chicken nugget thing, and it's he's being really inconsistent here with these examples.
Yeah.
That the Okinawans are a Japanese tribe or people who live in Okinawa in Japan. They live in this pristine, beautiful environment. It's a jungle mountain, and they're eating native vegetation from their mountain, but their primary food is pork. They love pork. They worship
It's
pork.
not their primary food.
It's not their primary food in the least bit.
They grow, what is it, the sweet potato or the yam? It's not true that they're just foraging from what's growing on the mountain. That's not true.
The Okinawa diet is based on semi-vegetarian, low-fat diet. Lots of fruit and vegetables, often pulses, lentils, thick beans, black beans, soy, regular algae, little meat, fresh fish only, little fat, little sugar, and very little processed foods. Just to make sure.
How is that? Yeah, it's not
It's not
predominantly
carnivore,
meat.
and that's not predominantly meat in the least bit. Okinawans don't have a lot of land to grow livestock.
Yeah.
Japan doesn't have a lot of land to grow livestock. They
Especially
You worship
traditionally.
it. And of course, they kind of discard that in the book. But if you do your own individual research on the topic, you can read about the Okinawans and their mythology regarding pork and how they consider it like a divine gift from heaven. And so they're living to 100, but I don't
And
believe.
they
And-
treated it was like a garnish with their meals. It
no
wasn't
more than 90 grams.
if you're talking about caloric value percentage of their plate.
Very small.
Oh, yeah.
Like 30 to 20% of their plate. Yet these carnivore guys are trying to twist this into some sort of information that backs their 100% meat diet.
yeah.
believe it's necessarily because of the pork, but they are eating pork, living to 100, but it's a pristine environment. The other are the Hunza, and they live. They are a tribe of people who live in the mountains between Afghanistan and Pakistan, and that is a region that I am from ancestrally. And those people are also painted to be plant-based, and they all typically live to 100, 110.
Where?
He said the Hamza, it's like in the Middle East.
Plant-based? The Middle East?
Mm-hmm.
As well. But the fact of the matter is that
Really
they
know
live in
about
very
them.
high
I
altitude.
don't
That's
do
one of the
research.
reasons, just like the Okinawans and just like the people in the Caucasus, these people live in high altitudes. They're eating native vegetation from their environment, and they prize their dairy products and their goat and sheep. And they, of course, the Blue Zone book very discreetly discards that aspect too, that they are eating, animal products. Actually, the majority of their diet is dairy products.
So he's trying to expose and disprove the this Blue Zone research, right?
They
And
always
trying to
said that they were
bash
eating meat.
veganism, but this isn't really supporting a carnivore diet, though. None of this is kind of like, as far as trying to get across the message and trying to convince people of being carnivore right now, this is kind of a waste of time. I get that what he's trying to do here, he's trying to be like, oh, these vegans that are saying this and trying to twist it into making these seem like these cultures were eating predominantly meat based, but it's like, regardless, it's just, you're not proving your point. This isn't carnivore rhetoric. Like,
Yeah, and it's definitely not saying the Blue Zone study is not a study to prove how healthy meat is. And that's what it's like, it was a study to show, like it's not.
Or the results of the study
results.
did not, aren't necessarily showing that, like the, All right. Continue. We have a lot to go.
So you have all these people living to 100, eating their animal products, eating whatever they want, and it's primarily centered again on meat.
Eating their
Living to 100,
plants.
where we in the West, you have most people succumbing to some kind of disease within their 50s or 60s, whether it be heart disease or cancer. So we should look to the past. There is credence there. People who have some type of ethnic ancestry in the West, in the States, they may much more easily relate to this because they may have been around grandparents and relatives who were subsisting into their 90s and 100s here in the West. And if they pay attention, most of the time they're subsisting on their traditional diet. They're not eating the Western diet of chicken nuggets, burger, cheese, pizza, pasta, crackers, cookies. They're eating the lamb shanks, they're eating the goat meat soup, they're eating the rice and carrots. It's a traditional diet. And
Carrots, rice
that
and
alone
carrots.
will make you go to 100.
That's plants.
That's a
Wait,
great
Plant.
answer.
What?
No.
wait. Is this dude not carnivore? Carnivore versus veganism. I'm confused.
I have no idea what's
This
going
is
on.
so omnivorism versus
not
veganism.
what we're talking
This isn't
about. Yeah.
carnivorism versus veganism.
This is carnivore, which
confused.
they do not eat vegetables or fruit. They think they could live off of solid meat nonstop. That's the
Yeah,
carnivore
just
diet.
straight animal products.
I really like that. Yeah. Okay. So
You really
let's
like
go back.
that?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Back even further, like you were about to do.
Okay. So we're going to have to tie some politics into this because this is a political agenda.
Oh, yeah.
In 1916, we had World War I. And if you just study conventional history, you're taught to believe that the whole world went to war and slaughtered tens of millions of people because some Archduke Franz Ferdinand got assassinated. That's it.
Right.
That's the
That's exactly what we were taught. Yeah.
yeah, that's what we were taught. The fact of the matter is that that was a war orchestrated by very powerful groups of men who sought to consolidate their power over the world's resources and corporations and financial institutions. That's what it really was. It was a
All right.
geopolitical and economic maneuvering, and they needed that war to assume and achieve their goals. During that time, it is when vegetable oils were first introduced into the diet as well. And initially, these oils were used for industrial lubrication. Later, they were introduced into the diet. And with World War I occurring and consolidating, these strong, influential, powerful members of society were able to peddle a narrative into all of the developed nations. So it was the same medical paradigm, the same pharmaceutical paradigm, and the same nutritional paradigm, the same political paradigm, and the same economic paradigm in all of Europe, including the Soviet Union and in the United States. And we start from there. And what their goal was, though, with this war, what their goal was to establish nations of people who could not think independently for themselves, but would be subservient to the mental, spiritual, and economic paradigm which they had established. And in order to build a nation of people who would be subservient to them, they needed them to be weak, sick, eventually infertile, and too ill to stand up for themselves or think about anything outside of barely achieving means to survive.
Really quick,
So,
really quick. So, I hear this a lot, like talking about some sort of malevolent agenda going on. But whenever I try to conceptualize this myself, it's hard to imagine how that's working. Like, is there a select few people who want this and they send their orders and it follows down the command chain or something? Or like, how does this actually come into fruition and who has the agenda? Like, how do you what's the word? How do you make it more real?
okay, well, for most people, it became very real in 2020 when they said you better stay inside your house.
Okay, that's fair. Okay.
Right? It became very real, and it's in your face now at this point. And I think for most people, if they don't have any sense to this, it's just indicative of how well they've been genetically altered, made weak, and made subservient to the system. So who's doing it? It's basically, you could say it's a hierarchical
Hierarchical.
level of concentric rings,
Okay.
where the higher up you go, the more information you have.
Hmm.
And for everyone who's in this hierarchy, the incentive to participate is power and wealth. And if you simply don't go along, you lose your status, you lose your position, you lose being the CEO of some great biotech corporation, right? Who made billions in the past few years. And you may have a bullet in the back of your head.
Huh.
So why would you go against it?
Right.
You're a millionaire, you have great position, and you get to feel wealthy and powerful. So, the CEOs of these biotech companies, they don't really know the bigger picture, but they just know, yeah, we're the powerful, we're the elite. We control policy. They don't say we control the world. They say we control policy. See, it's a more diplomatic way of saying things. We control policy. We control environmental policy, political policy, foreign policy, economic policy, social policy. So who's doing it? I mean, this goes so high. I mean, I don't know who's at the very top of it, but from what we can readily study and perceive, we know who. There are some obvious figures. Royal families across the world are in on it, right? And I'd say below them are individuals who are in positions of power, like CEOs of biotech corporations, CEOs of very big banks, right? Goldman Sachs and such. There's the World Economic Forum, which very conveniently packages all of them for us to see who they are and readily recognize them. So you can just go watch some World Economic Forum interviews, and they're all there. They're all sitting there. And it's basically people from politics, business, media, biotech, military industrial complex, everyone who matters really, or who has power in the world, coming together, talking behind closed doors and deciding, hey, which way should we navigate or steer civilization? And in a sense, I'm not totally against them, because you do need people to steer civilization. That's
I was
always
gonna
been
say,
the
is this dude an
case.
anarchist?
I just
Nope.
disagree with them on how they're doing it.
Right.
That's my
Gotta
disagreement.
go all the way, bro.
Got it.
I'm okay with them controlling people,
that's
just
good
not how they
clarification,
control
'cause
people.
sometimes
wanna
it gets
control- I
confusing
want them to
when,
control
want to,
people how I want
yeah.
them to be
when
controlled.
people mention an agenda, but it's hard to really understand where that agenda is coming from. But it does make sense that you have the people at the top, and it's sort of, and as you descend, the amount of information that you know becomes less and less, and so that's how you can sort of work that out. That's how you can make it work.
Yes,
Cool. So,
and another thing though is they also blackmail these individuals. So there was like that individual Jeffrey Epstein, who was conveniently hung in prison. They had these individuals perform acts with minors and then record them, and they keep that in a database, and they tell them, look, if you don't
It's
fall in
like
line,
elementary
well, we'll
school
just leak
conspiracy
this on you.
stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what
Base
Jeffrey
level.
Epstein, that's what his job was.
Yep.
He was contracted by intelligence agencies to go and do that
Known
kind of
this
stuff
for
on Bill
years.
And
Gates
he's gonna
and
be
many
like,
other
and so
powerful
these
people.
people want
So,
you
Yes.
vegan.
Yeah.
once you're in, you can't go out because they have so much blackmail on you. They just destroy your career and either put a bullet in your head or put you in prison.
It's really interesting. Yeah.
That's-
Okay.
Oh,
So
It's
yeah?
interesting to him because he's the age we all learn this stuff. So he hasn't heard this stuff yet. I talked to Joey the other day, and he was asking me about some stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, like he's like entry level into the conspiracy world. And he told me that he's been noticing that a lot of people that are big in the conspiracy world are also vegan. And I was like, yeah, that's a good observation to make. You should look into why.
Epstein thing was about with him flying with all these rich and powerful people. His job was literally to make sure everyone falls in line, or else we're going to show what you did.
Wow. So I kind of cut you off in the middle of your explanation with sort of finishing up World War One.
No. Go back into the other stuff.
Yeah. So, and just to give them a little bit of, not to totally knock them down, their intentions were to steer civilization.
To vegan.
Not all the time is it malevolent. Sometimes it is very, what's the word you want to use?
Eating vegetables is
It
bad.
can be psychotic and harmful, and there are very psychotic factions within the power, within the power elite, within the elite that control the world.
You could put this story on top of anything in the world. Like, there's no connection between the elites and pushing veganism on the masses.
Well, so far we have vegetable oil. He's mentioned vegetable oil coming.
It's very bad.
It was created
By the
during World War I for lubrication.
Yeah.
That's all I got though as far as the connection.
And like that's not what vegans don't sit around drinking vegetable oil, and I especially don't.
The most health conscious vegans say that's oil should be avoided at all costs and should be the most limited thing in your diet, really. At least, the health conscious vegans that I know.
And there's actually a study that found that vegans are like over 20 to 30% more health conscious than the general population. So, it's a little funny that you think that vegans, eat at Burger King and McDonald's and stuff.
Yeah, and
get their plant-based food from McDonald's.
Yeah,
and
all vegans think that the healthiest form of protein is an Impossible Patty or Beyond Burger. That's not true.
But their aim was to steer civilization, and you had a new nutritional paradigm starting in the 1920s, and a lot of that foundation was on transitioning the planet and the people on the planet onto plant-based diets. And the reason for that was that there are corporate windfalls. The power makers inside of this system, they control the petrochemical industry. The petrochemical industry is basically the oil industry and all the derivatives of petroleum, such as fertilizer, such as pesticide and herbicides, and many of the other inputs that go into conventional farming, such as like a John Deere tractor. It's produced
Farming grains that they feed mostly to cows.
To livestock. Yeah. Why is meat the most subsidized food industry
This
then?
dude doesn't know that. He clearly thinks all cows eat grass.
produced
I
by
guess.
John Deere, but it uses oil to fuel itself. And this kind of farming relies on tilling large fields of soil and planting huge monocrop of corn, soybean, um, wheat, and like these very sugarcane, these plants that don't really give any nutritional value, but they just allow for you to fuel the civilization to work and move forward.
No. Oh wow. So he
Those are all feed grains. Those grains are fed to cows.
the majority of those grains, especially GMO soy, GMO corn,
Like
that is to feed the livestock. Most of that goes to look it up. Like,
this dude is like
unless he's gonna,
seriously, like, is he trolling? Are both these guys trolling?
I don't know.
I think he is.
I hope so. I kind of hope so, but it's still damaging to people who watch it. And I guess I don't.
How does this Joey, like, he's 19, he has common sense, he knows this isn't true.
Right? I don't know.
Does that
But
make
it doesn't
sense?
even look like
Yeah.
he's paying attention, really.
Okay, so in this endeavor to create a more sort of controllable population, you could say, did they understand? Do you think they understood the full implication of a plant-based diet? Like, had they really thought it through, the environmental effects and all that stuff, or were they?
Dude, Varis needs to go to a supermarket. He'd be blown away. He'd be like,
Just
oh
like
my God,
any
there's meat
supermarket.
everywhere.
Yeah.
How was
Come
I
down-
so wrong?
Come down to our local Ralph's, bro. You'll be stoked.
Holy crap.
Get bison, like,
I guess no, sort of
So
naive.
that's something I thought about myself as well. I thought about it to myself. I contemplated it. And I do believe they understood very well what they were doing. And that is because when I studied how they created the system, and how they recruited certain people who could study the human mind and human history and patterns of the human mind, and they use that knowledge in order to educate themselves on how to better manipulate the masses. I was convinced that they knew very well what they were doing, that they had a design in mind. They wanted to create a race of people who could be manipulated very easily, who could be malnourished very easily, and just used to work and sustain or fuel this system which they have established. I think that that's the design they had in mind. Like, there's a famous quote by one of the Rockefellers. He said, "I don't want a nation of thinkers. I want a nation of workers."
I didn't answer the
And
question.
so when they were doing all this grand design, they literally didn't miss a single detail, from psychological warfare to nutritional malnourishment and everything in between. They created the whole package. And part of the emancipation, quote unquote, of women and the feminist movement, which I don't believe is feminine at all, part of that was creating this nation of workers, which would ultimately, they knew, lead to the degradation of the family structure,
50% of the
economic
population they
deprivation of
couldn't
the
tax.
family,
Yep.
and having a nation or race of people which are even more easily controllable. When
Okay.
you look at, just a quick sidetrack, what that has led to, and I'm not against female rights at all. I'd say I'm more of a feminist than most.
I still want to
feminists.
smash.
But if you look at what this paradigm of feminism, which they sponsored initially, if you look at what it's led to 1/3 of children conceived in the United States being aborted. The second third of children are born out of wedlock. And the last third of children, half of them will be born to divorced families.
Because
they really
vegan.
screwed us up
Because
in a sense.
vegans.
They screwed up
because they're not carnivore.
You're American,
Yeah.
I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Because they're not eating
Yeah, so they
nothing but
screwed up the
meat
American
all day
people.
and only shitting
And this
twice
is
a
part
week.
of the social aspect. The
No,
social
Joey says he
war
shits
on
4
the
times a
American
week.
people. There's a psychological war, there's a social war, a cultural war, and a nutritional war. And at the end of it, what they're hoping is to simply have somebody who can march to whatever drumbeat CNN says to drum to. And right now they're saying we're going to go to war. We're going to have nuclear war with Russia, and everyone's cheering on. Yeah, let's do it.
Oh,
This is what they wanted. They
interesting.
don't want the Martin Luther King What happened in the 60s against the Vietnam War when the hippies rose, we weren't as degenerate at that time. That scared the hell out of them. That's exactly what they don't want. They don't want the people who can think
Stupid
for
vegan
themselves. They don't
hippies.
want human rights activists. They don't want a Martin Luther King style figure. They want people
They don't
who
want vegans
will
out there.
only debate and argue about what is a
But
man
they do
or a
want
woman.
vegans out there.
But they do, but they don't.
That's- but
they
That's
don't.
crazy. Yeah, it's so. I think all those wars are intertwined as well. Like you have the nutritional war, the social war. I mean, you can't really distinguish them too much because a nutritional deficiency will make you sort of succumb to that social
Why is the meat industry the most subsidized food industry by the government?
Don't tell him that.
war agenda, right? So
Exactly.
yeah,
Because
really
they want us
interesting.
eating vegan.
Can you talk a
That's why they put billions
Yeah.
into meat. Because
Yeah.
they want us eating vegan.
little? Because I think it's worth when we're trying to figure out how we got to this point today. I think it's worth bringing in everything. So,
Yeah.
but when we break, can you talk a little bit more about how the family structure was broken? Because I think it's an important piece of the puzzle.
Because families don't exist.
Yeah, so one of it was having the woman leave the household and instead
Okay,
of
this is
taking
getting
care of
really
the children
boring.
Yeah,
and feeling
wait,
like a feminine woman,
This is supposed to be carnivory
convincing her
versus
that,
veganism.
Yeah.
working
Bruh.
alongside a man
Uh-oh.
in a competitive
What did you
office and doing
do?
sales
Oh, no, do you
gave
need
her
some
more
help?
worth. So
Oh,
that was the beginning part of it, the initial social.
Oh no. What did I do? I just meant to turn
And
turn
this
up the
book
speed.
focuses on the work of Dr.
This
Dr.
gets
Pottinger.
This gets good. That was
Dr.
actually perfect.
Pottinger was a medical doctor, scientist, and researcher in the 30s who did research on cats.
So this dude's a psycho that he's talking about. He's like, if you look him up and what is known about him and what the most opinions are about this doctor is that he was a complete and utter hack. And it's been known that he's been a hack for decades. And this guy says the book he wrote is the greatest book that's ever been written in the world.
And what he did was he did research on over 900 cats. And in summary, what he did was he divided
Cats
the
are
cats
carnivores.
into several groups and he gave them different diets and observed what happened to them after successive generations of sustaining on that type of diet. So he gave one group of cats raw milk, gave another group of cats pasteurized milk, gave another group of cats condensed and sweetened milk. Then he gave another group of cats raw meat and cooked meat. Then he gave another group of cats raw milk and raw meat, cooked meat and pasteurized milk, and all kinds of variations, even raw milk and cooked meat. And he observed what happened. And it's a great book. It's called Dr. Pottinger's Cat Studies, but in my book, I give a summary of it, and I also correlate it to historical trends of what happened in history and how entire empires and dynasties fall because of the ideas and scientific research alluded to in Dr. Pottinger's work. So what did Dr. Pottinger find?
Really?
He found that when you give cats 100% raw food diet, whether it be raw milk or raw meat or the two combined, they remain very fertile and strong. And when they have litter, all the litter are homogeneous, meaning they all look alike and are identical. They have full genetic development and they grow up healthy. And when those litter have another generation of litter, they are all also homogeneous, look identical, strong and healthy, virile. And in adulthood, the male cats express masculine characteristics and the female cats express feminine characteristics.
Yeah.
Then he observed the ones on the cooked meat and pasteurized milk. And he found that when they're given cooked meat and pasteurized milk within the first generation, they get allergies.
So I've heard this study. I've done a lot of research on cat nutrition specifically because my cat has a condition and I actually have my cat on a raw meat diet, supplemented raw meat diet. First of all, cats are carnivores. Second of all, this study, what it showed was cats' need for dietary taurine. When you cook meat, the taurine content is decreased. So, of course, the cats who were receiving adequate taurine were fertile and healthy, and their subsequent litters were fertile and healthy. And looked a certain way. So this is completely irrelevant to human nutrition. And it's quite a stretch that he's using this. And I'm curious to see how he ties this into cultures or whatever he said.
I thought he was talking about a different doctor, by the way, when I said that stuff earlier.
Oh, okay.
There's another guy he talks about that was a complete hack that he thinks he holds in very high regard.
Oh, okay. I mean, this dude is also a psychopath, though, because of to subject cats to conditions that know that they're gonna be, and having babies and they're unhealthy. I mean, that's
pretty
freaking psychotic. And like I said, this
has nothing to do with human.
No, and this was a big breakthrough in cat nutrition and how they supplement cat food and kibble with taurine, and how that's a huge necessity. The cats can't produce it themselves. Sorry.
A better. No, I'm not even gonna say.
And
that.
they get adrenal insufficiency just within the first generation. And within the second generation, when the next litter comes, all the litter, instead of being homogeneous and identical, they are they are not homogeneous. They are different from one another. Some are big, some are small, some are medium, and they are all born with allergies and certain types of physical impairments. And when they reach adulthood, the male cats lack masculine characteristics. They're just sitting around sleeping all day. And the female cats express more male characteristics. They're more angry, they scratch, they claw, and they fight. In the third generation of the cooked meat and pasteurized male cats, they're almost unanimously born with decaying teeth, blind, brain malformations, and physical skeletal malformations. They're basically born like mutated, and they're completely infertile across the board. They never make it past the third generation, ever. And he did this.
Is the meat like fully cooked? Like there's like no raw pieces, just fully cooked meat.
It's fully cooked meat.
Got it. Okay.
What he found, what was interesting, was if you gave a degenerated cat 70% raw food, it could start producing litter that slowly could regenerate to full capacity within the third generation, which had to keep all the generations on 70% raw.
Yep.
Of course, cats have shorter lifespans. So for us humans, a 70% raw food diet would mean something like within 10 to 20 years, you could fully regenerate your body and live as if you did not go through much physical degeneration.
No.
For optimal, healthy cats who were kept on 100% raw food diet, he found also that if you gave them at least 70% raw food, that they could adapt to the 30% cooked food, and they wouldn't go through physical degeneration. So I correlate his research with the fact that now it's been 100 years in the United States that we went off the pork, sausage, ham, bacon, hash brown diet. And, prior to the 1920s, raw liver was a delicacy in the United States, as it has been all around the world. So we removed that from the diet, and we've gone through 100 years of mainly cooked food, cooked meat.
Really? Because you could still buy it at the store.
And a delicacy implies that it's not eaten very often. You know what I'm saying? So to say something was a delicacy doesn't mean that it was eaten very often. It means it was occasionally eaten. Am I wrong? Doesn't delicacy imply
that means it's something that's more rare?
You don't eat a lot of it. It's a small amount occasionally.
There's liver in every
And I get what he's trying to say to connect with the cat story about how the cats that were fed 70% raw, they could handle the 30% cooked because they had a little bit of raw. And maybe he's trying to say, we had this little bit of, what was he saying, liver, and so but stretch in its
meats, but also
mental gymnastics
that cause all sorts of diseases. And you have the same type of physical degeneration that was described in Dr. Pottinger's book we're witnessing in the population today. And he also...
According to who?
We are witnessing the same type...
According to who? What study? Where are we seeing this?
I mean,
are you seeing this because other carnivores say this is happening, or because you've read
the numbers of, let's say autism and a number of cancers are going up? Sure, but you're talking about two different
of a plant-based diet.
Yeah, exactly. He's
type of infertility and gender dysphoria, where the men really don't feel like men and the women don't feel like women, and most men have a need to go on hormone replacement therapy, and the females literally need to go to fertility clinics to get their hormones in check. They're expressing the same exact characteristics as third generation.
Hold up, I'm sorry. Did he say most? Did he say most?
Yes, he's said that like 3 times. He said most men are taking hormones these days.
Why are there Planned Parenthood clinics on every street corner in the cities and the interstate? Why are that's if most women are infertile, why are there so many abortions? Which you brought up as a problem coming up with feminism. With it's
a third of deaths are because of abortions. He said, but then he's saying that
most women are infertile.
Fertility clinics.
That's not to say fertility rates are going down. But that's Yeah,
hormones
sorry.
in check. They're expressing the same exact characteristics
I don't
as
know what
third
race are
generation
doing
food cats.
anything.
I have a couple questions before you continue
know
on
what they
about
want us
with
to
this whole story.
Yeah.
So I have 3 questions. Hopefully I'll get to it pretty quick. So why,
Hopefully you'll
as far as
not
why the
answer
Pottinger's
any of
experiment was
them.
done, was he just like curious about like was it done to extrapolate human outcomes, or was that kind of unrelated?
A good question. I should have addressed that, but I want to give you a summary. So what he was trying to do was he was trying to create an adrenal gland supplement for human consumption. And so what he would do is he would get cats, extract their adrenal glands out of their body through surgical procedure, and they would die within weeks without their adrenal glands. So what he would do is he'd take out the adrenal glands, but then supplement them with adrenal gland extract from cattle that were slaughtered for consumption, and that would give him enough adrenal hormone to function. And he would find that different adrenal extracts would vary in their potency in allowing the cats to feel strong and vital and extending their lifespan. And then he took it further and he said, well, why is one adrenal gland extract very weak and poor and the cat doesn't do well on it, but another adrenal gland extract from a cow does very well? So he went to the source of these cows to see what the difference was. And he found that the adrenal gland extracts from cows that were in like cage operated farm lots, fed like corn and stuff in feedlots, those adrenal glands were of poorer natures and couldn't really support the.
But I thought they feed corn to cows. You said that that's only made for vegans.
Cats, vitality and longevity. And the cats that were receiving very excellent quality or who were receiving adrenal gland extracts, which supported their health very well, when he traced the source of those adrenal gland extracts, he found that those cows were grazing on fresh grasses in the mountains in Denver. And so, it's total different paradigm. The two cows, they had one was grazing on mountain grass and the other was eating corn inside of a cage operated feedlot.
Interesting.
And so he's like, oh, that's interesting. Okay. So that was the initial, you could say, motivation for his studies.
Sorry, just to bring something up here. So
Grass-fed, for one, grass-fed cows are still supplemented food, corn, grain-based foods. They don't get all of their
how
food.
little
It's just
calories
mostly grass.
are in grass, versus grain. I mean,
grain-fed cows can live off of a smaller amount of land than grass-fed. Grass-fed is way less calorically dense, so you have to have way more land for that cow to graze, which is super unsustainable. On top of everything you need, on top of having to pay for doctors, pay to feed them, pay to water them, pay to watch them, you need a huge amount of land. That's why there's not that much grass-fed beef, and it's still garbage because they still feed it garbage.
And regardless of all this, so he's grasping, he's trying to say these studies about cats you can apply to humans. He's trying to say these studies on cats supplemented with the adrenals from cows. So he's saying the cows had healthier adrenals, the ones that were grass-fed, than the corn-fed ones in the factory farming conditions. So it's like no shit, right? Yeah, a cow that's locked up in a cage all day is gonna have worse adrenals, than a cow that has land to roam and eat grass. Is he like
when an animal is enslaved? Hormones are released in its body that aren't good.
Yeah, it's not healthy. Cortisol,
it's not healthy.
All that stress hormone, it makes
when their children are taken from them or they're tortured every day for milk, they're not happy. Obviously, the happy California cows, are gonna have better quality.
Or no, the Denver mountain
whatever.
cows.
Yeah, the happy greens. This idea carnivores have, these cows are just super happy and they pass away from old age and then they get chopped up and you guys eat them. Like, it's super funny, but.
And then what he got into was he wanted to see what effect the foods themselves would have on the adrenal glands of the cats without removing
we're not cats.
So you could give them
cats are carnivores
being supplemented with adrenals from cows that are eating grass from the fucking excuse my French.
If you have absolutely crazy. There are other animals that are far closer than us genetically than cats. Cats couldn't be farther away.
Raw food. Well, he got into that because he also noticed that I'm sorry, I'm missing a part.
So in this 3-hour-long video, there's like 40 minutes about cats, and that has nothing to do with humans.
Cats, which he was pulling their adrenal glands out of. So he went around asking zoos and different facilities for food products, for food waste products, and there were certain markets which had a bunch of raw meat. that they would give him. And when he received the raw meat and he gave those to the cats, he noticed that they did even markedly better. So he said, wow, there's something in here where even if they have their adrenal glands extracted and you give them raw meat, they all of a sudden get even perkier and stronger.
He
And that
had
led
the idea to feed the cats raw meat. What is this guy talking
to going down the
about?
rabbit hole. What the heck's going on here?
Do you
Yeah, so
think? Okay. Yeah. My next question is why he saw those results, like why the raw meat was better. I've heard the idea that it's taurine, that's been hypothesized, or that it's some water soluble vitamins that are destroyed by heat. Why did they do better on raw meat?
So I've given a very good summary in the book as well, Disease of Kings, on why the raw meat does better. And essentially, there are studies to back this up, although I don't like to rely on studies because you could find a study to prove anything, right? You could find a study to prove cranberries.
We'd
cure
still
cancer.
like to
It's
hear it,
ridiculous.
though. We like to hear something from you.
Yeah,
There are
some
studies
sort
which
of
show that
citation to
nearly every
some
single
sort of
mineral
study.
and vitamin are heat sensitive, and that they are destroyed when they reach certain temperatures. And so that's one reason. But also, there's stem cells in raw meat and raw proteins, which are very heat sensitive, and those are destroyed. Further, when you consume raw meat, it is much easier actually for the stomach acid to digest the raw meat. When we consume meat, the adrenal glands and thyroid glands activate and are responsible for producing the hydrochloric stomach acid in the stomach. Essentially, consuming
work the same
meat
for cats?
is
I
like
don't
an
think so.
internal exercise. Just like physically exercising, it relies on having healthy adrenal and thyroid glands to produce energy. The process of digesting and
carbs.
assimilating food, and just a quick side note, vegans may say, well, this is why you shouldn't eat meat because it's hard to digest. Well, that's because it's the only food we're meant to digest. The plant foods doesn't digest. It doesn't digest. So,
Yeah.
you know, you're talking about real digestion.
But you already said the centenarians ate plants.
I don't get it. Yeah.
Plants aren't digested in our stomachs. How are we alive?
Or are you saying the reason why meat
How do
is
I have
digested
muscles?
slow is because there's plant material in there as well?
No,
So,
he's saying plants don't digest in our stomachs because we're only supposed to eat meat. He said that.
I don't know. It doesn't.
He said it takes a long time to digest because it's only what we're supposed to eat. And he says that plants go through quickly because we're not supposed to eat them. Like they just get rejected, which some do. Some do.
Assume what,
Yeah.
what he's trying to
Some
say.
do, yeah,
Healthy
but we're
energy
assuming
required,
what he's saying because
healthy.
he's giving no, like he's not even talking about a study in 1995 that we could actually search, like 1990, like nothing, just complete off the
Real
top of his
energy is
head
required to digest meat.
nonsense.
Like plant foods just pass straight through you. It doesn't require being digested because it doesn't digest. So the meat is digested by the power of the adrenal and thyroid glands, producing hydrochloric stomach acid and a variety of protein and fat digesting enzymes in the stomach. And when the meat is cooked, it requires just a lot more hydrochloric stomach acid to digest it. And so this over time causes more wear and tear on the adrenal glands and thyroid glands as well, causing their degeneration and impairment. And in his cat studies, he found that the cats which were on the pasteurized milks and cooked meats, the primary organs and glands, the first organs and glands that would degenerate were the adrenal and thyroid glands, and then later the ovaries and testes would also go, because without proper digestion and assimilation, you're not going to be able to feed your testes and ovaries as well. So there's multiple reasons.
So is this the study he's using when he references, he says vegans are all infertile?
Oh my God.
A cat study?
Raw meat. There's also the bacteria component, where if it's a healthy animal, the natural bacteria that's on the surface of the meat is supposed to add to the bacterial population of the body. So you've got stem cells, you've got ease of digestion, you've got the B complex vitamins are all heat sensitive. They're in the blood. So if you completely cook it and toast it, all the water soluble vitamins are gone. The fat soluble vitamins are not as sensitive, but they become harder to digest, thus causing more adrenal gland and thyroid gland output to produce more stomach acid. So those are the variety of reasons of why raw meat is essentially better than cooked meat.
Got it. And before you continue on.
Yeah, cats are not supposed to eat cooked meat or pasteurized milk.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
On with your story, we're gonna get back to that. It's just a little side tangent. Do you eat like a basic?
Notice he has no feedback, nothing whatsoever, nothing, no questions, no like, really? Is that
Sometimes you'll say
whatsoever?
that's interesting.
Raw
That's
meat
about
diet.
it.
No,
Yeah.
I don't. I eat cooked meat, but I'm more like a 70%.
Look at him looking at
he
the chat.
recommended, Dr. Pottinger, he recommended people do a 70% raw diet. He found that his cats who were given 70% raw food did subsist well, and they could tolerate the 30% cooked. Most of my raw food, though, comes
What's
from
the point?
raw butter and raw eggs. I mean, raw eggs is just
What
such
would
an
be
amazing...
the point of not cooking half of your meat and then cooking some of it? Because it
Why
tastes
not
better?
eat it all raw? Yeah, because
If you're
the part that
carnivore, it
gets-
should taste great uncooked.
Yeah.
What's the point of cooking it?
food, especially if you don't refrigerate them and you let them sit out. It makes it very easy to digest and assimilate. And you've got all your water solubles, your fat solubles, you got some decent minerals, you've got the raw protein, raw fat, and you've got just a huge amount of stem cells inside there. So mostly raw eggs, raw butter, but I do have my occasional raw meat. And I'm not having as much right now because I'm not near the source that I like to
Butter, carnivore.
Got it.
clear my raw meat from. But what I can say personally about raw meat, my God, it is a steroid. It is a natural steroid. If you want to build and develop the body and get a lot of energy, you've got to get the best source organic meat that you can get, and make sure it comes down to room temperature, and just eat it in small amounts at a time. I don't like bite into it and eat it. I actually just eat it like as if you had a fancy restaurant. Cut small pieces off at a time and nibble on it. It doesn't taste like anything at all. It doesn't taste bad or good. It's literally the most neutral food, which I think is so
It
interesting
is.
because
It is. Yeah.
it's the most
If
neutral.
we're meant to eat it, wouldn't it taste good? Like if meat was our natural food, wouldn't it taste amazing? Why would it be neutral? And then why would it immediately go bad and be inedible when
And to the point to where, and for
a
us,
fruit or vegetable
our-
could last months?
Our digestive system can't handle the bacteria like a cat can. Like
Yeah.
I don't.
This is all over the
So to show
place.
that it's
It's funny.
we're
We're
so
only losing brain cells watching this more.
You're welcome.
used to having something tantalizing our senses. You know what I mean? Different flavors and spices and sugars. Whereas with raw meat, there's just nothing. It doesn't taste bad or good. It's literally like a neutral food. But yeah, I'm 70%. There have been
And
times.
in my intellectual brain, that tells me we're supposed to be eating it. And we should ignore all these tasty foods.
where I've done raw organs, and I literally feel like I'm on ecstasy when I have it. The problem is that even grass-fed organic meat, much of the time is vaccinated, and usually the day
Dude, you feel like you're on ecstasy when you eat raw meat because there's literal mammal hormones that you're ingesting
Dead
with that meat.
Hormones that are
that
stress,
cortisol, like
stress,
slaughtered animals.
diseased, or no, dying, tortured, depressed animal
that
hormone.
alone, the hormones alone you're ingesting, yeah, you're gonna feel high from that, dude. Like,
And you're
of
and you're
course, it doesn't mean it's a good
it's
thing or
also
healthy.
it makes you feel high, and it's also gonna do other things that you might not be so in-cued on.
I feel like I'm on ecstasy when I eat raw organs.
That
after
animal
I-
was dying. That's
Dude, that's some
That's-
new world order stuff, right? You want to talk about this, evil people and control and stuff? Like,
what happens when you get killed. What goes off in your body? What hormones go off? Like when you're scared?
oh, like stress hormones.
No, like what's the adrenaline?
Oh, yeah.
You're eating adrenaline, dude.
Mhm.
No
Yeah,
wonder you're getting
exactly.
high. You're eating solid
Yeah.
adrenaline. That animal was full adrenaline mode, getting killed the last time that blood went through that meat. You're getting high off of dead animal hormones.
And
that's
regardless
not
of-
good for your body or your
Yeah.
brain or anything like that.
Regardless of about how you feel about it morally or what your judgment on that is about eating animals, that is a measurable thing. These animals can feel stress and pain, and there are chemical reactions that happen when they do that. And the chemicals that are released they're not, it's not phytoestrogens or whatever. This is directly hormones that we can uptake into our system from another mammal. So yeah, that's gross, dude.
Super gross.
That's gross.
Super gross and weird.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, oh, I'm high off of.
Yeah.
Yikes.
I feel some type of headache, and I know that I've been poisoned in some way. So
Wait, I
don't
just want to go back what he's referring
done
to
raw
about the headache.
organs. And
Raw organs,
um,
okay.
But yeah, I'm 70%. There have been times where I've done raw organs, and I literally feel like I'm on ecstasy when I have it. The problem is that even grass-fed organic meat, much of the time is vaccinated, and usually the day after, I feel some type of headache, and I know that I've been poisoned in some way. So I don't recommend too much
Let's not even say anything. We just need to pause for a second.
raw organs unless you can get an incredible source. But and I thought I've tried multiple sources, and yes, when I eat like some of the raw organs, raw kidney or raw liver, some raw heart. I mean, initially, I remember several times going for a walk with my wife after consuming some raw kidney and listening to music, and just this feeling of like I'm so happy to be alive.
Yeah.
You know, like the fact that I can go and just look at the sky and see stars, this is enough. You know, and I don't feel like that normally, but when I eat like a natural diet, what we were programmed to consider to be the first food, you get to that state of consciousness. And this may
The plant-based diet is the only diet that's ever been found in a study to improve your mental health. All of this guy's saying is complete nonsense. There's never been anything scientific to back this up. This is someone's wishful thinking, you know, being so excited and being this important person in this diet, just like affirming his own bullshit and just making things up to talk about infield baseball with other carnivores. Nothing science-based. This is all just pure BS.
sound demonic, satanic to people, but let me draw a picture really quick.
Yes, it does. It
sounds
very much
demonic,
does.
Satanic.
It does. You're consuming another animal and getting high off of its hormones, and you're like, you think that feels great. That's really creepy, dude. Like, those are the hormones of a dying animal, and you think that feels great? Or you felt something odd, and you're just, oh, I felt
I'm
great.
high.
You just named
I feel something.
you just named it something positive because it reinforces your bullshit agenda.
Take me back to 10,000 BC, and I'm living with my village and tribe. And the most fun thing that I could possibly do is pick up a spear and go hunting with 100 of my closest cousins and relatives and run because we're so healthy and have energy and chase woolly mammoth. It would be our ancient way of competing with one another and having so much fun.
It sounds fun to me.
So Joey in another video said that we didn't have to run to catch animals. He said all the animals we went after were slow.
They're big and super slow.
Big and super
Like
slow.
woolly mammoths.
So when we're hunter gatherers, we were mostly gathering. 100 people didn't go run off to go hunting. That isn't how it worked.
And he's just making up
And he's just making up
fantasy.
stories, not
Oh.
about anywhere real or any actual story of any actual civilization or culture.
He's
just
literally
making things up.
10,000 years ago when I was with my
10,000?
tribe. The most fun thing we could do was to pick up a spear and chase a wool. What? That sounds like so much fun.
Yeah.
Like, wow. You know,
And he had so much energy from eating meat all day, even though our muscles run off glucose, which is carbs.
you kiss the animal after you kill it, and you bring the meat back to the family and the village and the tribe, and the one who caught the mammoth for that day is the warrior, and you're honored for the week or for the month until they capture the next woolly mammoth. No, this is what we really are. It's such a beautiful experience. You know,
What
we're not meant to
did
be
Harley say? Animal lover until you put him in the oven. Animal lovin' until you put it in the oven.
bent down like sheep in the ground all day picking up greens and putting greens around the house.
Yeah, right.
No,
so-
it's
yeah.
not how.
Yeah.
It may sound, wow, raw meat, raw kidney. No. This is natural humanness.
Huh. Yeah. It does feel good when you help other people, and that would be the sort of ancestral equivalent of that. Like that.
Yeah, and you couldn't do that with plant-based foods.
That's how you would provide and help.
Everyone would just be mad that you brought home a basket full of fruit. Everyone would
Yeah.
be pissed.
people that by bringing in meat, by bringing food that will sustain people. It's
Today,
really
today it's
interesting.
been converted to office culture and sales. The way you compete
Right.
with one another, and it's like completely in the ego. You know, I got to make more sales than him, this and that. Whereas before, when we were in tribes as hunter gatherers, it was almost a spiritual experience. Especially if you research the way that the Native Americans did this.
Look at lions when they catch an animal. What do? Get away from me! Get away from my meat! Get away from my
Yeah,
meat!
if we want to compare to humans
Yeah.
to cats.
Get away from my meat! They're not sharing it.
Stuff. I mean, to them, it was like a holiday, a ceremony, a ritual. They would praise the wild buffalo when they would hunt it, and they would, you know, cover themselves with the blood of the animal to give it respect and appreciation. Everything was consumed nose to tail. It was a spiritual experience for them.
They
Amazing.
poured the
Yeah.
the
That was
lifeblood
ancient
of the
rage,
animal
hunter
all
rage,
over
that's
him
what
out
it
of
was.
respect.
Hunter rage,
Look
yeah.
at what this
Um,
guy's. This dude's
one more
Orwellian
question before we
doublespeak
get back on track to
here.
What you're talking about.
It's such a cool this tradition that these made up people I just imagined did. Like,
You brought up gender dysphoria a couple times.
I'm not
and
saying that there wasn't hunting back in the day, but this dude's just making shit up.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, it's so widespread today, and it's only become more common. But in my English class, interestingly enough, we had a unit on gender, or like, what was it? It was gender, something about gender, and they were talking about how, Well, it's not. I have to laugh because it's so
He
ridiculous.
goes to one of those schools, obviously.
It's not new. It's not. He's like, it's my teacher's like, oh, this is not a new thing. It was just people were scared to talk about it back then, and now it's more accepted. And so, we had the same amount of LGBTQ people back then, but now it's just more common. And I'm just sitting there like, no way, this is real. So my question is, was gender dysphoria prevalent 2,000 years ago, or even further back? And how do you know that it's not just an increase in acceptance that is allowing people to, people who have been LGBTQ for a long period of time, to just simply come out and be more open about it?
So, good question. There's multiple ways of approaching this. One, we have to look at Dr.
I think I'm reaching to the
scientific research on
my
the
limit
subject
here.
on cats.
And it's not even on
study,
subject. Like, they've
studies done
hardly
by some,
talked about any
weird lab out there that God knows who funded it, and no one knows the details. So there's a book published on.
But that was
2 douchebags talking about sports.
That was funny.
Very funny.
That was
didn't learn anything, that's for sure. Was definitely misinformed.
I mean, there was, he was talking about some interesting things, sure, but
no connections.
The connections.
He's made no connections.
The cat study, though, I'm sorry, that's super funny, and just because it's funny, because I as soon as he started talking about it, I recognize I've read about this, but I was researching for feeding my cat, not myself. Like, what? Oh man.
Yeah, so I have a debate with Joey this week, and I hit up Varis after I watched this video. I sent him an email, and I've heard nothing back.
Oh,
so we'll see.
Hopefully,
we'll see if I can get Varis on here, but I'll definitely be posting a video with Joey this week.
Can't wait.
We'll talk to you guys later. Jeff and Allie out.